I haven't been a guy that's fasted all my life, but I was like, I want to get into the best possible shape out of the operation as possible. Fat burning was one of them. I measured myself 15% body fat, so I was like, let's start with this fasting thing.
Fasting has been around for thousands of years. It's one of the oldest human superpowers techniques. There's a reason why it's a superhuman tool, because it helps you reset, gives your body time to repair, use natural processes. Made the biggest difference for me in my own personal transformation as well.
I find what happened to me was there was a big cut quickly to the point where I was like, this is amazing.
You got to 9% body fat and you kept your muscle.
Fasting triggers growth hormone. Growth hormone improves metabolic rate and it builds muscle. Fasting, what we're not referring to is starving.
Science is only catching up now as to why it's so good, but it's always been good because that's how our bodies were designed.
You might have heard the phrase, when you eat is almost as important as what you eat. It's pithy, it's cool. What does it mean? Well, we're referring to something called time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting. What we're not referring to is starving. Starving says I have a stick of celery every hour and I still put on weight. Why? Because that's not getting enough food to your body. Your body's going, hang on a second, I'm getting food in, not enough. I'm slowing down all my metabolic processes. I'm reserving or preserving energy, and that's starving. We're not talking starving. We're talking fasting, eating according to your body's natural rhythms. We talk about circadian rhythms when you sleep. Every cell in your body has a circadian rhythm, your liver and your muscles, and it's a 24-hour cycle. And if we can eat according to that cycle, it changes the game. Now, you might hear some grumbling from my stomach because I'm fasting at the moment. Sean's not fasting. He's a long faster, and you're like an in-between faster. So you've got a mix of what works. Again, individual variation matters. So I don't know where you want to start, but you're hosting this one. So
Sean always fasts, so I'm thinking he's always grumpy because he doesn't fast. Is that what you're saying?
Hangry.
I
is
am
it
fasting at the
Just give the man some food.
All I can think about now is steak, because I am actually fasting. I love fasting. I think it's one of the oldest human superpowers techniques, because fasting has been around for thousands of years. It's not biohackers. We didn't know, no one invented it. It's been around for thousands of years, and there's a reason why it's a superhuman tool, because it helps you reset, gives your body time to repair, use natural processes. And so we're going to go dive into it, but I love it because science is only catching up now as to why it's so good, but it's always been good because that's how our bodies were designed. So that's what I love about it. It's an ancient tool, and we're going to explore that more today.
And it's not expensive.
In fact, it's the only one that saves you money, because you stop eating.
That's why he's doing it, because you're a bit tight, aren't you?
Yeah, very tight, man.
It's frugal, good steward. There's other ways to say it.
So the thing with South Africans, they call it Rexy arms, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, because our arms are very short when it comes to our pockets.
Yeah.
Deep pockets, short arms.
Short arms.
Yeah. But I like that
That's
idea.
good.
I mean, and that's part of what More Good Days is about, is, guys, these are the things that you can do that don't require you to, take out your wallet and throw out a whole lot of cash. Stuff that really works. The cheat codes that are largely free.
Exactly. We love those, because not everything has to cost you millions of rands for equipment. This is particular one. This one goes the other way, as I said, and saves you money. So please, this is the one we promote the most, because I made the biggest difference for me in my own personal transformation as well. And we can go through some of those.
What does a bat cost these days?
Upwards of 20,000 rand, and it can break like that. So it's
wild.
crazy.
Got to save a lot of steaks to pay for one of those.
And also, the thing is, when you play a lot of cricket, the bats get you 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 bats. So we are lucky. So whenever I get opportunity, I'll give a bat away to someone, because, and I think of as a parent now, we're not talking about bats here, but as a parent spending that much money on a cricket bat, knowing that it can break, what's it like? Do you do? I don't have boys, so
I mean, this is off the record, but I said to my boys, I don't want you to play cricket. Ironically, and partly it was like the weekends sitting on the side of the
Yeah.
field, just like,
long.
and it's long in the sun and all those kind of good things.
Yeah.
And then I meet you, which is the irony of life. Like, what a cool guy.
Yeah.
Is that,
Cricket can be cool.
absolutely. But yeah, they were short-term sportsmen. So it was the kind of the football, the rugby,
So
surf.
because we're talking about fasting, it's like Test cricket. It's a long wait.
Exactly.
He's the
Yeah.
long
the-
faster.
Yeah.
You're the 1 day
5
cricket where
days,
it's
what-
like 5 day cricket,
Exactly.
like in between
T20,
18-6. I'm like T20. I did 12 hour.
And I love that because some people and some of your fans like the short format. Some of them love the 1 day. Some of them love the long format. And I think
That's
that's our own journey here. Is we all fast differently and they all work differently because all our bodies are different.
Exactly.
So like we can't go and say do this, it's going to work. You're going to need to find the one that works for you because everything is about your personal genetics and that's what we're going to have to help you discover.
Yeah.
And let's run through some of these things.
So maybe, and Faf, you always ask these amazing questions, but just before you do, what is intermittent fasting and why do we do it? We do it essentially because it helps us to be metabolically flexible. Now, as a human being, you want to be metabolically flexible. What does it mean? It means you can switch easily between two fuel sources. So essentially, our body runs on glucose and on fat. Ideally, your body grabs glucose because it's easy, quick, low efficient or efficient fuel. But at some point, we need to be able to draw on fat as well as a source of fuel. And the ease with which we do that makes us metabolically flexible and healthier. And intermittent fasting helps us get to that point quicker.
Oh, okay. So I don't even have to ask the questions. You just come out straight with.
Well, I think I answered the
Yes, the
first
front.
one.
It's hitting it on the front foot. I
Question
think you
two,
call
yes.
it.
No, because I'm not a big. And once again, it just comes down to knowledge, right? So I've never really done a lot of fasting or intermittent fasting. So my journey on this is very new. I would say I started with. I tried out fasting maybe in the last 6 months. I tried it, and my why was initially. Once again, I was injured, so I was like, what can I do to try and get in the best shape possible? And fasting was one of those things because I was trying to break some fat down, and I was like, okay, I'm keen to give this a try. And Sean suggested he does the 2 days a week fast, and he suggested start with 1 day, 24-hour fast. And I was actually surprised how easier it was because my knowledge on fasting was I have to stop eating. I'm going to be hungry all the time. I'm going to be grumpy all the time. And it was actually very simple. It was like have dinner at 5, 6 in the afternoon with your kids and then have dinner the next day again. But also you can have tea, you can have black coffee, you can have amino acids, you can have bone broth. So that made life a little bit different for me to go, okay, this is actually not
doable.
I mean, because I'm a big eater. I'm an eater. So I need to
Actually,
eat.
on that, as you mentioned, what you can have, it's key to point out what breaks a fast. And Sean, I know you and I agree on this. Anything that triggers insulin is what's going to break a fast.
Yeah.
So you're right, black tea, black coffee, water, no insulin spike or no insulin trigger. Therefore, you can have that during a fast. So anything that doesn't trigger insulin, you can.
Absolutely. I mean, the way to think about this is that when you're working in like a day job, you build up a to-do list at home, for example. If you're working all the time, you never get to your to-do list. The door's always wonky, the picture is slightly skew. And in your body, when you stop working, when you stop putting food into it, your body goes on the list of all the things it needs to repair. And it goes, oh, I've actually got time now. Let's use some of that resource, take out some of those things that aren't working, and let's fix them. If it's always eating and processing and digesting, it never goes into the repair mode. And what fasting does is it stops the workload of your gut, and instantly your body starts to consume some of the cells that are dysfunctional and old and that need to be repaired. It starts using some of that as fuel in the beginning, and that's how it gets it cleaning. But the way to think about it is if you're working all the time, your to-do list is not done, same as your body.
But crazy. I mean, once again, we're talking about, like my own perspective, athletes repairing your body.
Yeah.
It sounds so important.
Yeah.
And it's not mentioned in one chat or one team environment that I've ever been in. Guys, this is fasting. This is intermittent fasting. This is what it does. So if someone says to me, this is going to repair your body, I'm going to try it.
Sure.
So why isn't fasting more part of
Well,
our
I love
everyday?
what you said, that it's not downtime, it's not laziness, it's repair.
Yeah.
And I think that's key. So many people think, if I'm relaxing or not training, you're just being lazy. No,
Yeah.
that's a key part of my performance is repair. And Sean mentioned something called autophagy. There's a big
Mm.
word for you. Really hard to measure in human beings, but it's essentially cellular spring cleaning.
Is that what
Mm.
autophagy is?
That's what
Calorie
autophagy is. Yeah.
sprinkling.
So, and it only happens when your body's not building and not growing. So, when we consume food, that's a trigger for something called the mTOR pathway, and that's
Yeah.
growth. So, muscles develop, your liver, your brain, but as soon as that pathway diminishes because we are no longer eating food, because we're now fasting, your body kicks over from growth into repair.
Mm.
And that's key. And that repair, there's such good things around repair in terms of longevity and muscle recovery, and the pain you talked about
Mm.
getting in the mornings, that diminishes if you give your body a chance to repair. But it happens, and the trigger is fasting. When, how, it's really hard to measure
Mm.
autophagy and the timing of that in the body. There just aren't studies that can do that. So to say at 16 hours autophagy kicks in, no one can say that. And if they do, don't believe them. It generally happens, and Sean, you've probably got a bit of insight into this, from about 12, 16 onwards, but it
Yeah, it's
varies from person to person and
yeah.
varies from tissue to tissue.
Mm.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. So autophagy, when your body is using its old cells and cleaning out, generally happens from 16 to 20 hours. It's all different on different bodies. So that's why, for me personally, I do the two 24-hour fasts, and I will run through that in detail now. But the three common types are a 12-hour fast. At about then, you're not really hitting in the autophagy phase. Your body hasn't fully switched onto the next phase. Then there's the fasting for 16 hours. You're just starting to get into autophagy. And then on the two 24-hour ones, which we'll talk about, called the ancient fast, you're just starting to go into autophagy. If you are really, really focused on the full body cleanse, then there's something called a 72-hour water fast. You don't just have to have water, you can have coffee and
All
other
those
things.
things.
And that is a proper metabolic and gut reset.
Mm.
And I do that a few times a year as well. And I see benefits every single time I do it. It sounds unbelievably scary. I've done it 5 or 6 times this year, and it makes a huge difference metabolically and physically to myself. But autophagy, to answer the question, roughly from 16 to 24 hours.
So
And
I've never been in autophagy.
no, you have. That's
You
interesting.
just
So
it's just a lower level.
autophagy always happens.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's
Baseline,
not necessarily at
but
16 plus.
but it ramps up.
Okay.
Yes.
mTOR goes down, autophagy kicks in. Yeah.
Imagine how good I would have been then.
I know, you could have been such an amazing,
Yes.
you could have been
Well,
a footballer.
you still got time.
Yeah, I've got time. I've got time.
We're adding lots of years onto your life. Maybe you're going to
Exactly.
become a professional skier after that. I know you've never been able to ski because of the accidents.
Yeah.
You never know.
No.
That could be your next
So
career.
my career is starting now
There we go.
because I'm in autophagy.
But
Brilliant.
But I think as far as like being practical, people want to know, like, what do we do? So obviously people know that fasting is not eating. And so let's talk about the different timings. But I think what people will be relieved to know is they can have a few things. It's not zero, you know? And one of the main things you need to complement fasting with is having some salt, having some of those minerals, trace minerals, electrolytes. Sean Shooter actually doesn't break a fast. It's perfect for this. It has everything you need. But if you're fasting without salt, you're going to feel dizzy, lightheaded. You know, you're going to feel like, oh, this doesn't, you feel a bit woozy. And that's because you don't have enough sodium. So you need to be having some salt through any fasting.
And that's the same with electrolytes, just no sugar, right? Because
yes.
Still that salt.
So remember, in salt, you get minerals, trace minerals, and electrolytes in a natural, unprocessed salt. So you don't have to have salt and then throw in a product of electrolytes. They are in there.
All in there.
It's all in there. So that's important to note.
So it's a nice shift.
It's a nice.
In the past, people used to think hydration is electrolytes.
Yes.
Water. Yeah, actually, the minerals is more important.
Yeah, and anything that has a high sweet flavor can induce a small insulin response. So you want to, when you're fasting, as much as possible, avoid anything with flavors. That's why something like salt is so good. So salt is absolutely something that you can have. Thank goodness you can have black coffee.
Mm.
You know, I think a lot of us live on black coffee
Yeah,
and
thank God for
fasting.
black
You're
coffee.
you're a big fan of it. Make sure you have it after like 60 to 90 minutes if you can. As I said, I'm part Italian. I have to have espresso as I fall out of bed, so that's different for me.
Decaf. Think decaf.
That's not really coffee. We can talk about that another
Wow.
time.
Wow. All right. There's
It's-
another podcast episode
yeah,
coming your
yeah.
way. You know.
Decaf.
We now talk
Spit
about
on.
mold and coffee, but tea as well. And this is, you can have the herbal teas like rooibos, or you can have the Earl Greys and breakfast teas with the caffeine. I personally like it with the caffeine. And green tea. Green tea is a fasting superpower because that acromantia and that caffeine, that long-lasting caffeine, which is the same as matcha, that just resets your gut, gives you long-term energy. So when on fasting days, I have a lot of green tea. I absolutely love it. And that acromantia really starts to reset your gut. So there's salt, black coffee, black tea. You can't have milk because remember, milk is going to spike your insulin, and that's going to take away from your body's cleansing because now it's got something to do. Milk definitely fits in. The coffee and the teas and the salt water, that definitely doesn't trigger. So don't add honey. That also
Yep.
can break it. That breaks your fast. Apple cider vinegar doesn't. So Sean Shooter and everything in there is perfect. But make sure when you fast is to make sure you have some of that salt. That makes it easier, and it also stops the cravings, especially if you have some apple cider vinegar.
I want to give you not a perfect analogy, but roughly speaking, this is how your body works. Think of it like a kitchen. All right. When we eat food, our body is in an absorptive state. So we energy in, insulin goes up, and insulin then stores food, firstly in our liver, glycogen, glucose, and then in fat stores. So if you think about a kitchen, when you're eating food, your body's storing food in the fridge. And when the fridge is full, it puts the rest of that food into the deep freeze. You know, the big chest freezer in the garage with boxes on top of it under lock and key that's hard to get at. That's where that fat storage goes. So the fridge is your liver stores, your glycogen, the deep freeze is your fat stores. When we stop eating, then our body is in a burning phase. It's using energy. What's the first thing you do when you go into the kitchen? You open the fridge and you'll take food out of the fridge. And when the fridge is empty, only then do you go into the garage, into the chest deep freeze, and you get frozen food out of the deep freeze and eat that. That's accessing your fat stores. Now, if you're always snacking and always eating, you're essentially putting food in the fridge all the time. So you never get to empty the fridge. So you never have to go into the deep freeze to get your fat stores, and you become metabolically inflexible. Then your body gets used to burning glucose all the time, and you never get to burning fat. And that's the analogy. Like I said, rough, scientifically, but people understand that. And really what intermittent fasting is giving your body a chance to empty the fridge, to finish last night's meal so that you can get into those fat stores and start burning fat and becoming metabolically flexible using ketones.
Sure, you had people at fat burn.
Yeah. So that's what you hear, like ketosis, because after about 12 hours, that switch happens and you stop burning glucose because there's none left. Your body would keep burning it if you had it, but because you're fasting, you're not putting it in, it's got to get the stored calories from somewhere else. Remember, insulin goes and stores excess calories. When there's high food, your body stores it for later. So that's your fat is calories. It's stored for you. So when you are not burning glucose and not replenishing it, it goes into that chest freezer, into that fat, breaks it down and brings it back into a usable form of energy. But then you are in ketosis, you are burning fat for energy. And most people have fat and so if you, for exercising, you can go for a long period when you're burning fat. You know, and a lot of athletes go into ketosis so they can cycle and paddle, and you either have a lot of glucose and carbohydrates or you rely on the fat. So you want to switch from burning the glucose to the fat, and fasting is one of the best forms of that. And the best thing about losing weight when you fast is your body just like naturally gets smaller. If you go onto a calorie restricted diet and you see people with hanging skin and things like that, that's when they've lost a lot of fat, a lot of very quickly, And that doesn't happen with fasting. You literally, your body just naturally starts to reshape itself because it's a slow and steady process. That's why fasting needs to be a consistent thing. You can't fast once a month and expect benefits. You've got to either be doing it every day with the different times,
Yeah.
or you do something like I do, where I do it twice a week, which suits my personality and my body structure. But fasting is an absolute superhuman power, and it has been around for thousands of years. We did not invent fasting. We're just touching the surface as to why it's
Yeah.
scientifically beneficial for your body, but it's been around for thousands of years.
And sorry,
Yeah.
Puff, I just want to, you mentioned ketones. So unlike autophagy, which is hard to measure in human beings,
Yes.
you can measure ketones.
That's easy.
And what's interesting, so once your body's burned glucose, or it's used up all its glycogen stores in the liver then kind of goes, no more fuel left. Now I need to start converting fat into ketones, and ketones become the source of energy. In fact, your brain loves ketones. That's why people often talk about towards the end of their fast, they've got this brain clarity, and they feel like they don't get the slump in the afternoon. Those are ketones kicking in.
Yes.
But the timing is interesting. So first 8 hours, there's no ketones essentially in your body, but then you run out of glycogen, and then the next 8 to 12, you're starting to see an uptick in ketones. And then from about 12 to 16 hours is really where you see this level of ketones go up.
Yes.
And it's interesting. It's not timing per se that you can say at 12 hours it happens. It's the individual. So people who are insulin sensitive, in other words, not resistance, people who do a lot of zone 2 exercise, people who sleep well, who are not having highly, processed foods, you switch on that ketotic metabolic switch a lot quicker than someone who doesn't sleep well, who's insulin resistant.
Okay.
So as an athlete, you'd get ketones a lot faster than potentially I would, just because of how you exercise. So it's got less to do with timing and more to do with who you are as an individual and what you're doing. So it comes down to that
Absolutely.
lifestyle, that epigenetics. Genetically, you can do nothing about your genes, but epigenetics, the way you express, turn on and off genes, that's up to you. Gee, I touched on a whole lot of things here, but the point is this: you can measure ketones, and and how you live is how quickly you can turn on those ketones and become metabolically flexible and use fat as a fuel source.
And what about muscle? So fasting versus muscles. You talk about fat, talk about glucose, but it doesn't take away from your muscle.
So preserving muscle while fasting is like the holy grail. You if you're going to fast like consistently, you need to spare a thought for muscle, because you don't want to go and lose 5 kgs and 4 of it is muscle. Now, what most people don't know is muscle is also a store of energy, and that can break down into glucose if you don't preserve it. So with fasting, it is always good to pair it with a bit of strength training. So you're stimulating the muscles, because if muscles are stimulated, then they're not going to be used to be broken down for energy. They're like reserve signs all over them. When their body comes for energy, those parts of your body are active. They are stimulated. They won't be broken down. There is a way that you can supplement it, and that is something with essential amino acids. There's 9 essential amino acids. They are the building blocks of your body and muscle. When you're doing strength exercises, resistance training, you get tiny little tears in your muscle, and then the amino acids are the building blocks that go and repair that all, and that's how your muscles grow. So it's not a complete protein like in a protein shake or powder, but it is the building blocks. And in fasting, that critical difference is important, because if you went and had a protein shake when you're fasting, you break your fast, you spike your insulin, your autophagy stops, everything stops. If you are preserving muscle, you can have a serving or 2 of essential amino acids that gives your body the building blocks for your muscle, and it does something called muscle protein synthesis, stimulates your muscles. And then there's the mTOR pathway, which you briefly mentioned. Let me see if I can get it right. The mechanistic.
mTOR. We all say mTOR.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone can remember what mTOR stands for.
the mechanistic track of rapamycin. So I probably got that wrong. But that is literally your switch between building and then repairing and autophagy. So if you have essential amino acids, it will stop some autophagy. And there's a different time when you would want to go straight autophagy. But as far as keeping your muscle, especially for athletes that don't want to lose muscle, supplementing with essential amino acids and some strength training where you stimulate your muscle, that is the way that you don't burn your muscles. So most people don't do that. They just focus on the fasting. But if you pair it with muscle preservation, it is a long-term longevity powerhouse. You don't want to lose muscle because muscle is what helps you live longer, the strength, the core, the stability. So you can't fast without thinking about muscles. And those are two ways that you can preserve your
I think it's
muscle.
so right. I just want to sum up. You said the word if when it comes to fasting. The issue is if you're going to fast, and we hope that you do, you must supplement your fasting with resistance training, some weight training, build muscle. And ladies, don't pick up the pink weights. They're heavy weights. You need to be picking heavy. And when we say heavy, we're talking your first rep 10 times. If you can pick up more than that, it's too light. So pick heavy.
It's
10,
just
8,
while
6.
fasting, you're saying
This
do
while
heavy
fasting,
training.
even so. But the issue is if you're on a fast, you've got to be building muscle and you've got to be supplementing with either amino acids or protein.
Yeah.
And the average is 2 grams per kilogram. So if you weigh 75 kilograms, that's 150 grams of protein is a must. And you've got a narrow window to do it in, but you've got to, if you don't do that, you're going to lose muscle mass. And that's the last thing you
don't want to do that.
I just want to share something that's so important because I only realized this a few months ago. So I think it's 2 or 2.2 grams of protein per body weight. So if you weigh 100 kgs, that's 220 grams of protein. Now, a steak is about 250 grams. That is not 250 grams of protein because in steak is water and all that. It's only about 50 grams of protein. So when we say, especially when you're coming out of a fast, you want to have heavy protein and get your protein up. When we talk about grams of protein, you need to do a bit of research. How much protein is in that fish, in that chicken? It is not the weight of the steak that is their grams of protein. It's usually 1/5. Yeah. So that's a super important point to note.
And terrifying.
Yeah, exactly, because you got to eat a lot of protein to keep these things. Okay, so now we're going to go through a few options. We've got 3 for you today. The first one is the gentle start. This is 12 hours. Nice and simple to remember. And depending on when you finish eating food, it's 12 hours from then before you can eat again. This is particularly good just so that you can start getting in the mindset of fasting. It's also good if you're under high stress because fasting is stressful. If you're under high stress, it's not a great idea to add more stress to it. And also for females with cycle sensitivity, the 12 hours is a very good way to start just to get used to your body. So 12 hours, what does that mean? If, let's say you finish eating at 8 at night. I mean, we prefer to eat earlier, but let's use 8. You finish at 8. That means you'd be having your breakfast at about 8 the next day, 12 hours later. If you can push it a bit more, great. But 12 hours, you start getting some of that benefit. Your body starts to, it hasn't been processing food in a while and can start getting some of your fasting benefits. The major benefits of fasting happen after that 12-hour period, but it's a great way to start. I don't know if there's anything more I need to say on that one. It's pretty simple.
No, I think probably what's key is consistency.
Yeah.
So if you're fasting 12 hours one day, 16 the next, 18 the next, back to 9 the next, your body doesn't work like that. Your body has rhythms built into it, into every cell in your body, and it loves consistency, the way you sleep, the way you eat. So if you pick 12 hours, stick with 12 hours. As a family, we do 16-8. So we will stop eating at 8 o'clock and we'll eat again at midday. And I find that works beautifully with my genetic makeup. To a point that if I have breakfast, if there's an occasion or celebrating something, I've got to force myself to eat, which is unusual. And I can really feel my body going, dude, what are you doing? Did you really need that egg? So it's working with your rhythms. In fact, science says the best intermittent fasting schedule for you is the one that you can stick to.
Yes.
If it feels like torture, it's not healing. It's
not
hostage. It's a hostage situation.
And there is some benefit in not doing it 7 days a week, 12 months a year. So I think you fast 6 days a week, and then there's one just to let your body reset.
What's that? A cheat day?
It's a. Did you have to say cheat day?
Cheat
Yes,
cheat
it's a cheat
code,
day.
cheat days. So the
Because then
16
I look at The
hours.
Rock and he's eating a stack of pancakes this big.
no,
and it's
goodness.
like
Cheat day today.
Yeah,
not
but
the
they're all
leg day,
protein
so-
pancakes. They're not like caramel berry or something. But 16 hours, when I tried it, for whatever reason, for me and my genetic makeup, I started putting on weight. I don't know why. And I did it 7 days a week. I didn't break. And apparently for my body, it started to think that I was in like a low food environment. So it lowered my metabolic rate. So I'm burning less. So then when I would break my fast and eat, my body goes, oh, I better store this because there's not much food around here. So that's why not doing it 7 days in a row is great, because if you can, everything about this is fasting, but then you also need to feast a little bit, because when you feast with good proteins, healthy fats, all of that, not fast food, then you break this like lowering of your metabolic rate in your systems, because your body goes, oh, there is food here, so don't stop burning all as much energy. We're not conserving, we're going with this food environment. So fasting is always should always be paired with feasting at the right time. And I think that's a thing that people get wrong. They're focused on the fasting and not on the refeeding. And the refeeding is protein first, heavy, healthy fats, and giving your body something easy to digest, especially if you've been doing a longer fast.
But is protein something easy to digest first up?
So you can have something like fish instead of like a heavy steak, or if you're having chickpeas, make sure they're really, really cooked and that they're really soft. And so it's just about think about like what would be easier for you to digest and start with that.
So a steak is not that.
Yeah.
So if someone is eating a steak, it would be having
Yeah.
something.
So even though I say all these things, when I break my fast, I go straight to ribeye steak. And for some reason it just works for me. So it works for my body.
So there's
but
no
I can't
like
go and say it.
standard. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Do
the
it.
science would probably say have something like vegetables and fruits and.
No, I mean, it's not bro science, but I think
Yeah.
it has to do with the trigger on insulin. And what we do know from science is that carbohydrates have a significant impact on insulin.
Yes.
So you have a carb, insulin spikes. If you have protein, less of an effect. And if you have fat, even less of an effect on insulin.
Okay.
And so the best way to break a fast is a low insulin trigger.
Yes.
To get back into your feeding state.
Okay.
So I think it's like you're eating it like protein, fat, then carbs. You can have some carbs, but make sure you've had the protein first if you want the balance. So those are the two easier ones to do. Just remember the feasting part, that's as important. And then there's another.
Sorry, Sean, but you're also not trying to squeeze in 4 or 5 meals into your narrow eating period. There is a benefit to calorie restriction. We talked about that, I think, in our last episode. And don't take away that benefit by just stuffing your face and going, I've got
a normal
8 hours to eat. I'm just going to make up for lost time. No.
Yeah. The only way you actually really lose fat is you go in a calorie deficit. So you're burning more than you're intaking. So that's just mechanics. If you're filling it up with heavy carbs and that, you're not going to be losing weight. So you need to be burning more than you're inputting. So when you're breaking, don't go and have 3 meals in one. Have a normal meal, and then in that day, if let's say you would normally be doing 2,000 calories, for example, and if you're having 1,000 on that day, you've saved 1,000 calories. I think it's 7,000 calories.
So it's built over a week.
Yeah, 7,000 calories is a kg of fat. So think about it like that. All these calories that you're doing, you're knocking away what your fat store would be. And I think that's an important piece to and for me, I couldn't do intermittent fasting. It didn't suit the way I lived my life. I like breakfast sometimes I don't eat later. But what I found was a system that was used in about from 50 AD. It was in a document called the Didache, which talked about a 2-day fast on a Wednesday and a Friday. And this was based off another religious fast, which started about 600 BC, which was on a Monday and a Thursday. So I'm talking about 2,500 years ago, people were doing this. And what I've done is I've added some biohacking stuff to it. So it's like ancient wisdom, modern science, and I've joined them together. So I call it the ancient fast, and it is fasting on a Wednesday and a Friday. And what that means is you finish dinner early on a Tuesday. So I would like to finish by like 5 o'clock. It also gives you a really good sleep because you're not digesting when you're sleeping. And you essentially skip breakfast, skip lunch, and eat your meal at 5 o'clock on Wednesday. That is a full 24 hours, and you're sleeping for most of it. It is a a brilliant way to do a 24-hour fast. And then you break your fast, you have a normal Thursday, Friday comes along, you do it again. Stop eating at about 5 o'clock, then you eat again on Friday night. And then it is building up to the weekend for some feasting. And that is how your body, you're always keeping it on its toes. It's never adjusting to your and lowering your metabolic rate. It never knows what's coming, so it just keeps you burning the same amount of calories, and it gives you two 24-hour periods in a week where you're cleaning your body and your inflammation markers go down, your blood pressure decreases, but the most important that I think is not just the weight loss that absolutely happened. This was a huge part of how I lost 35 kgs, and it didn't feel that hard to do it. But the best part for me was the way my brain worked. When I'm fasting like I am now, my brain is switched on. I can see things sound clearer. I think better. Ideas pop into my head. Creativity comes. The best part of fasting is not just the weight loss, it's the way your brain functions. Not even brain fog disappearing. I'm talking about laser focusing your mind. And that's why I love fasting. And so on the ancient fast, there is a few steps within it. And what we're going to do is in the show notes, we're going to put a link. So if you want the full protocol on how we do it and how I've developed it, click the link below and we'll send it to you for free. It's too much to go into in one episode as we're closing up. But if you want to know more about it, it's something that I've developed. And Faf, you were one of the first people to go on it. Tell us how you found it.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't been a guy that's fasted all my life, but I think what's the reason for fasting was what got me into it firstly. So I was like, I want to get into the best possible shape out of the operation as possible. So fat burning was one of them. So we measured it on the data and we were like, this is the moment. I had a nice holiday in America. I was Disney World. I was doing all what Americans do have. They don't fast. They're massive.
No. Fast food.
Massive, like everything. So I came back in a position where I was like, okay, I measured myself 15% body fat. So I was like, okay, that's way higher than I normally am. But it's great because it gives me a starting point. And then I was like, okay, let's start with this fasting thing. And it for me started with 1 day a week, which I find was very easy because of these tips that you give. And then 2 weeks later was I tried the 2 weeks, 2 day a week, which was Wednesday and Friday. I find having them so close together initially was tough, so I just tweaked it to go maybe a Monday and a Friday or a Monday and a Thursday because you're in control of your week, so you can decide when you want to do it. And I found that was really good. I find what happened to me was there was a big cut quickly. Like there was a lot of fat percentage that went down quickly. To the point where I was like, this is amazing. In 2 weeks, I've lost 4-5%.
You got to 9% body fat in like a few weeks.
Yes,
Wow.
without any training.
And you kept your muscle.
Without any training because I couldn't, right? So that was for me, it was like, wow. Then I realized, okay, cool. Now I actually need to get some muscle back. And with the fasting, it was difficult for me to get the muscle up and the calories. So I find it tricky with the eating windows. When I was fasting like this, I couldn't get all the protein I wanted, if I intermittent fasting. So I was like, for me, what's more natural is if I do the 24-hour fast and I have a dinner at 6 o'clock, have breakfast at 8 o'clock or whatever, but then I can get that protein in, and then training, I can train harder. So I think the balance then for me was like, this is the most realistic thing for me to do in my lifestyle because I'm traveling and then you get the hacks, when you're flying, maybe it's a good opportunity instead of eating all the crap that you do when you're flying, just have a day where you do a fast day. And so then you cheat all those bad habits that I normally used to do. But right now it's at that balance of keeping my muscle up. So it's 24-hour fasting for me is great. And then when you get to a point where you feel like you need to cut a bit of fat again, then I'll just do a 24-hour fast, like you said.
So let me challenge that. Because I want you to try again. And I know it didn't work for initially, but we know that when you fasting, not starving, fasting, triggers growth hormone. All right? Growth hormone improves metabolic rate and it builds muscle. So if you can train in a fasted state, you're going to lose fat quicker, but you're going to build muscle quicker too. And if you do it consistently, you might find that that muscle gain, assuming you're getting enough
Yeah.
protein in,
Yeah.
that's your challenge. It wasn't
Okay.
the training, it was the protein in. If you're getting the right amount of protein in, you might find actual muscle development improves because of that raised level of growth hormone because of your fasting.
That makes a lot of sense, because I think the difference for me was I couldn't train.
Ah,
You
yes, you see,
understand?
exactly.
Mm.
That was the
I
injury.
couldn't
Right.
train, so
Yeah.
I couldn't then push.
So now,
And now the difference is, I can.
so
Yeah. So
rethink that. Try it again. I
rethink
can. And here's the thing that you want to go. You
to
want to
be
take home with you.
continued.
So listen to me carefully now. Technically, a fast bowler will be faster when he's fasting.
What
There
if
we
you're
go.
not a fast?
He doesn't want the fast bowler.
Like I couldn't line up fasting with batting. So I'm like fast bowler.
You got to change
So
it.
That's
fast,
great.
natural.
That's
So
great. That's great.
Lance,
But you've got me. I think it makes sense. I'll give it a crack and I'll give you some feedback.
And to those who want to know, can I train in a fasted state? Absolutely. It's good for you.
Burning fat.
Mm.
And there
Building
are
muscle.
there are a few people that we wouldn't recommend fasting. So I think if you're a person that has like an obsessive behavior and binging, and you get anxiety from food, or if you've had previous eating disorders, fasting's probably not a good idea. If you're under a huge amount of stress, you don't want to put your body under more stress. So I think there are definitely categories of people that need to check with a doctor before they fast. Generally speaking, it's going to be very helpful. For men, there's a lot less sensitivities and complexities. With ladies, there are some cycle sensitivities around that. So you need to just make sure that the right periods of the month are happening before you fast. You might have to skip a fast. And even on those days, rather do consistency. And if a Wednesday and a Friday doesn't work for you, and you've got a big important lunch meeting on a Wednesday, then just do it on the Tuesday or on the Thursday. But then next week, go back into a rhythm. Remember, it's not about perfection. It's just about being better each day, so we can have more good days in the end. And I think if we're gonna round it off, well, what would you like to say?
Mine would be that, like the line is on, fasting gives the body a break to repair. So that however long that window is, I didn't understand that about fasting before. I just thought whatever, people is fasting. But if you're telling a sportsman it's giving your body more time to repair. Repairing is our word, right? It's our big word. But then for other
Recovery.
people, it'd be repair, recovery. For other people, it's also fat burning, right? So you're giving the body more time to fat burn. And Dr. Mike has given me more time
Good.
for that to happen.
For more good days.
I would say we started by saying when you eat is almost as important as what you eat. It's true. Most people are overnourished and undermuscled, and intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating gives you an opportunity to correct that balance.
For me, it's all about being in control of your body, and this is a way that you can actually take control back. It saves you money. It gives you discipline, because you're not just bending to any whim or will that you have to pop a sweet into your mouth or fruit. There's a discipline. There's like a delayed gratification, which has huge beneficial consequences for your life, as opposed to, hey, let's have everything right now whenever we want. It's just twice a week. You just get back in touch with your body. You have more energy than you could ever imagine, and your brain, I do it for the brain and the clarity that I get, not for the abs. That's a nice secondary element, but I would do it for the brain any day of the week and the benefit of. So there's no better time to start than now. Don't put off tomorrow what you can start today. This was about not doing something. That's pretty easy to start. We do have some basic information in the show notes. If you want the more complex on the ancient fast, please click the link in the show notes. We'll send you everything for free. It's a little bit more detailed, and you'll need a little bit of preparation. But why don't you just start on the gentle one? Finish your dinner, wait 12 hours before your next meal, and you'll go on from there. You won't regret it. Your body will thank you. Your mind will give you better ideas than you've ever done before. And it's just one step to having more good days. So join us. Please tell us what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all those things, and we'll see you in the next one.
And thank you for your feedback, because we listened. I mean, last week there was an overwhelming response about sleeve length, and as a result, we've lengthened our sleeve length.
I
We're seeing
listen.
less
I
of
listen
that.
to the
Thank you for
comments.
that.
I listen. Imagine what's coming next week.
Not short shorts, please.